Hi, welcome to episode 3 of Down the Badger Hole with Drew and Chandler. I'm Drew,
And I'm Chandler.
and we're doing our sultry voices today. Just kidding, we're not because I'd get really old really fast. How was your week?
That's good. Sorry, it was good. Um, I don't know. I worked and worked some more and worked.
The dude that was an issue, who we're not gonna just name drop
Yes.
anymore. Yeah,
Hey, they don't know his name.
he got fired. Yeah, episode 1 shows the name. I'm pretty sure.
No, I bleeped it.
Oh, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bleep got fired.
Yeah.
So that's good. Glad to hear that.
In the middle of the day too.
Ooh, that's a rough way to get
Yeah.
fired. That's how you know it's just like
That's how you know
get
it wasn't
the
just
fuck
in.
out of here.
That's how you know it wasn't just in my head. You know.
Yeah, I mean, if like
If
they got
everyone's
fired,
like, oh, okay, like,
right,
yeah,
for sure.
it's not just like, oh, he's just being a bitch. You know.
Yeah.
How was your week?
It was great. Did what I always do. Did a little bit of home repairs, which is always fun. Oh, we played DayZ together.
We did,
and we got you
yeah.
back to our base on an undisclosed server in an undisclosed location. Because we don't want like super intricate stream snipers or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good time.
We only played for like an hour.
Yeah, but like I at least repaired an entire base that had been blown wide open.
That's true. Hey, I helped. I did.
You did hold some wood for me.
Yeah, I helped wood.
So that was good. That was good.
But in real life, I will be at your house building stuff
Tomorrow.
hopefully tomorrow or
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Shop's open to you.
Yeah.
It's a good shop. So.
Well, it was a good shop.
Yeah, I mean, it needs a little bit of pickup here and there, but other than that, it's good stuff.
I'm trying to think what else happened in my week. I don't think anything like. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything.
I mean, sometimes you have an uneventful week, and that in and of itself can be a great thing.
Tuesday, I took a mental health day because Monday, I mean, you saw me on Monday.
Yeah, you looked pretty rough and ragged
Yeah.
on Monday, at least at lunchtime. And then, Tuesday, I saw you were like streaming stuff, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you not at work?
Yep, mental health days are necessary.
Sometimes they really are, yeah.
They really, really are.
All right, well, you ready to jump into this badger hole?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Oh, man. This week, it's the war on drugs.
The war on drugs.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get hate. I don't know what this is at all. And I didn't do any research because I didn't want to know any of it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I told you what it is. What did you think it was when I said the words "the war on drugs"?
Okay, I think you told me what it was when we were eating dinner. I don't remember what you said.
Checks out.
That's A. B. Well, I genuinely thought it was. I told my wife, I was like, "Is that just like the Captain America movie, but like worse? You know how like they just drug him up and everything like that." I just assumed it was something like that where they were just drugging people to death.
It's not.
Okay.
It is not any sort of super soldier serum. Well, I mean, there's a little bit that's kind of that actually, but no, the vast majority of it is like the American war on drugs. Like, I'm just gonna get into it, and you'll understand.
But so, time out. The reason why I don't do any research onto some of this stuff, obviously, I know some things about like Bigfoot, like episode 1. But
like you knew that Bigfoot is like a thing,
and I knew most of almost everything you said. I kind of.
Okay, sure.
To some degree, but I feel like I'm a very I'm going to ask you all the questions in the world
and that's
type of person. So I feel like for people listening, it's better if I don't know shit because then I will ask and it's not me like acting. It's not me like, oh well, what does that mean, Drew? Elaborate. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, with as many notes as I have, the elaboration is going to come. Don't worry. And yeah, no, if that's how you want to do it, just so long as we disclose our topics beforehand to each other, because like I like to know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I love to do my own research because, as you'll find out in these ridiculous notes that I spent 2 weeks putting together, I love little interesting tidbits, and I've been like that my entire life. And if you hate that, let me know. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
I think almost every American, probably everyone on Earth, has been affected by illegal drugs in one way or another, whether that be intimately or even just in passing. So it's no surprise that the US federal government tightened down on drug offenses, right? So like, you've at least been in contact with someone that's on drugs, whether it be the dude digging through the McDonald's trash can to try and find whatever he's looking for in there.
Yeah.
Or like personally, like, I mean, I've known people that have died from overdoses. I'm sure at least at this point, people that are locked up because of drug offenses.
You don't go down that. I know a lot of people that have died from overdoses or just been in, maybe not died, but had several overdoses or been under the influence to the point where they've done some very not okay stuff.
Right. And I'm sure that our listeners have all had a similar experience one way or the other, even if it's just in passing or, again, intimately, like we said. Richard Nixon, aka Tricky I Am Not a Crook Dick.
That name sounds familiar.
Richard Nixon?
Yeah.
He was the president.
Oh, man, look at that. Look at that.
We're off to a great start, folks. Officially declared war on drugs in June of 1971. But a quick look back at history proves that it's been going on for much longer than that. Side note, Nixon is going to make a couple appearances in this episode, so get ready for their Nixon. That's what Richard Nixon's. He's got the jowls. The whole thing. Holy shit, okie doke.
Dude, I know
you're not a student of history. Like, we know that.
Well, and it's hard for me because there's some aspects of history that I love, but then there's some that I just don't care for. And like, I don't know. I know that's confusing.
Yeah. I love parts of history, but other parts I could just do without.
Well, it's not, I'm not saying that I could do without, but I've just never put in the effort to learn anything to do with it.
Okay, that does make sense. Where was I? This is going great.
Yeah, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard.
He stated that drug abuse was public enemy number one and started allocating more funds to combating this invisible enemy. Like, this was all kickstarted by him. In 1973, the Drug Enforcement Agency was formed. Did you know? Side note: Nixon was a Quaker. Do you know what a Quaker is? You know what the Quaker Oats, which is a company that by the time this comes out might be completely defunct. What? Quaker Oats, like they make like oatmeal and shit.
Okay.
Yeah. The Quaker Oats. The dude with the hat. Yeah. And Nixon was one of those guys.
Okay.
But I found that interesting because I didn't know that. Not that it has anything to do with anything, except it kind of maybe does. Very religious upbringing, huge dislike of drugs and everything that comes with it.
Why did you just say Quaker wouldn't be
Quaker?
Yeah. Why did you just say that they wouldn't be in business by the time?
Quaker Oats?
Yeah.
Oh, because like all of their stuff is being recalled from all stores everywhere.
Oh, I didn't.
Not all. I don't have the stats in front of me about Quaker Oats, but like it's kind of not looking great for that company.
Oh, all right.
The war on drugs was a relatively small component of federal law enforcement until sorry. The war on drugs was a relatively small component of federal law enforcement efforts until the presidency of Ronald Reagan, which began in 1981.
Yes.
Okay. Reagan greatly expanded the reach of the drug war and his focus on criminal punishment over treatment, which led to a massive increase in incarcerations for nonviolent drug offenses, from 50,000 in 1980 to 400,000 in 1997. That's that's 8 times the amount in 17 years. In 1984, his wife Nancy spearheaded another sub-genre of the war on drugs with her Just Say No campaign, which was a privately funded effort to educate school children on the dangers of drug use. These campaigns are shown to have had the opposite effect, because when you tell a bunch of kids not to do something, odds are pretty good that they're just going to fucking do it. You can. So let's watch some Dare ads from the 1990s. This is what I grew up with on the television.
This is there.
All these, so these are 5 different. Some of them are dare, some of them are just DEA paid for, but they're all golden.
Okay.
And we'll let you react to them in real time because I doubt you've seen any of these. Being a young buck and all.
If I'm being honest, and I used like in school,
Yeah.
I just didn't pay attention.
Because why would you?
Well, for me, it was more personal. Like I smoked at this point,
Right.
and everything, so it was like, I don't know. I didn't like seeing the bad parts of it, which the quotes aren't anything, but like all teachers tried to push was how bad something is for you.
Right.
So like, I just didn't. That's why I just kind of blocked that out because I was like, okay, that could be me. There we go.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right, we're just gonna jump into this.
Yep.
Is there audio?
Oh, there is audio on this one.
Okay.
Actually, there's audio on both.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs.
So for those that can't see
This is your brain on drugs.
or haven't seen this commercial, this man just cracked an egg into a hot frying pan, and that's your brain on drugs. All that does is make me want to fuck an egg.
I'm the quality is horrendous. It's not,
It was late
like,
80s, early 90s, so yeah. And then they ran these for like 20 fucking years.
B. All he did was cook an egg.
Yeah, and he cooked it way too fast. You should not cook an egg that fast. It's not going to be very delicious.
No.
And he didn't even season it. Like, what are you doing?
But I'll take that kind of commercial over, like, have you seen that new one?
No.
With, like, the lead that's flying through the sky.
Oh,
and
don't vape because CGI and stuff, or like whatever
Yeah,
they're saying.
whatever
like,
it is,
like
whatever it
the
is.
truth ads.
You're inhaling this monster, and it's like stupid shit because it's like no, I'm not.
I welded for like 6 years. I've inhaled way more than that before I even vaped.
Yeah, so like,
so
like I'll take that over because that's not necessarily incorrect. You are frying your brain.
yeah, but
In some instances,
Sure.
obviously. All right,
we got more. We got 4
Yeah,
more
well,
of these to watch.
we're gonna go
Let's
to
get into
number
it.
2. Fucking dog.
Hey, Lindsay?
I think this one was an early 2000s
I
ad.
wish you didn't smoke weed. You're not the same when you smoke. And I miss my friend.
So this girl went to the
I'll be
fridge,
outside.
and her dogs, we assume, started talking to her, telling her that she shouldn't smoke weed. If weed made my animals talk to me,
I'd keep smoking.
I would be without a doubt a giant pothead,
Dude, same.
because
Actually,
that would be
like
dope.
Bella. Like if Bella could just say 5 words.
Right.
Bella is a 7, 8. She's 8.
She's
She's
a
8-year-old black lab who is blind as a bat
And diabetic.
And diabetic.
she
So if
is
she could
the
just say
best.
like something,
Yeah.
that'd be dope.
If she was like smoke weed and I'll talk to you more, I'd be like, I'm never gonna not be high. At this
Yeah.
point. Sorry about it. So
For some dogs,
you
but-
you can see how like these really aren't driving anything home that you would expect an anti-drug campaign to be doing.
So, Sarah, what's going on here? Sarah? Sarah,
She won't answer you.
Sarah looks like a deflated
Or
balloon
She can't.
on a
why
couch.
not?
This is the way it's been since she started smoking pot. She's all lazy and boring and... we used to have so much fun together.
And now?
This is what we do.
Okay, what the fuck?
So when I watched all these earlier, and again I've seen them before, like in my youth and shit. And my thought was, if you just smoked a little bit too, then you guys would probably be having a great time. And that, like, that's bad, but at the same time, you're not connecting with the youth here.
Drug commercials have always pinpointed the laziness of pot. I know several people.
I know the person that you're referring to the most. Oh, actually, the two that you are referring to the most.
I know several people.
They're some of the hardest working motherfuckers I've ever met.
That if they don't induce themselves, then they are late. But if they are just normal and just smoke as they go about their day, they work just as hard as the next motherfucker.
Harder in some cases.
Yeah. But if they don't smoke, then they're like,
well, I don't know. I think maybe some of that has to do with like chemical imbalances and that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, I've smoked a little bit of weed in my day. I know you've smoked quite a bit of weed in your day.
yes.
And I've never once just deflated into a couch like that. Even on like super high amounts of indica, I'm never like that. I'm always like, let's watch something or let's eat something.
So I feel like most people are going to relate to this. You get paranoid. So if you're just sitting down, you're going to get more paranoid. And obviously that's not the way for everyone, because there's some people that just don't get paranoid or just like are energized whenever they smoke. For me, back in the day, if I were to get high and just sit on the couch, I'd start tweaking. I would freak the fuck.
Sure.
Like I had to be outside. I had to be doing something.
Right.
Which also back to the laziness factor.
Yeah, like you're like you want to do stuff.
It made me have to. If I sat down, I'd have a fucking panic.
Interesting. But I think a lot of that goes into how it affects everybody kind of differently.
Correct.
Which
100%.
is a big thing with marijuana specifically.
100%.
Let's watch this guy. This is targeted at the urban youth.
Give me 15 cheeseburgers. Come on.
Can I take your order?
Can I take your number?
Can I take your order?
You got any egg?
Can I take your order?
Man, I don't have any money. All right, go. Man, watch out.
Okay, so if you couldn't tell what was happening on that one, it was a group of like, that's a racist commercial because they're obviously black guys that pull up to a drive-through and order in different like varying ways. And the last one, they go, "Oh, I don't got any money," and they just pull off and they hit a little girl on a bike that's in front of them, and then it's a splash screen that says, "Marijuana can slow your reaction times. Harmless."
Okay. I'm gonna point out you know how many people get hit every day from just people not paying attention?
Yeah, like this, like a cell phone in your hand is way more distracting than being a little bit high. I'm saying
I
that
don't
as
know.
someone who's never driven high.
I was about to say that. I've never driven intoxicated, so like
Facts,
it's
yeah.
hard for me. And don't get me wrong, I've had a few beers and drove, but like not a healthy amount. I've never been
A healthy amount of alcohol.
I've never been stoned and driven.
Right.
Because I don't think that I could if I'm being completely honest. But again, back to other people. I say motherfucker drives like a psychopath if he's not stoned. Like
Oh yeah.
So it's just
Sorry, it took me a second to understand who you were talking about.
perspective is all it is at that point. But honestly, those guys looked like they were having a good time. They were just trying to get some grub, and then they accidentally hit some high or not. Like that shit happened.
Yeah, right. But I think the moral, quote unquote, moral of that commercial was that they were high and forgot they didn't have money. Therefore, they were in that specific place at that specific time and weren't paying attention because they were high, and that's why they hit the girl. It doesn't make any fucking sense one way or the other.
Did that 2 weeks ago?
You
high.
hit a little girl on a
No.
bicycle?
No, but I drove my ass 5 miles to the fucking fast food place and forgot my damn money.
Ah,
So like then that shit happened.
okay.
I mean, I'm a little slow, but
I mean, I think that all the viewers can attest to that at this point.
Josh got me back.
Shout out, kind Josh. All right, number 5. This one's from '87.
It's yours?
No,
My mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must have.
Must have what?
Look, Dad, it's
Where
not.
did you get it?
Dad,
Answer me. Who taught you how to do this stuff?
you all right? I learned it by watching you.
Parents who use drugs have children who use drugs.
I learned it from watching you.
That's a bold statement.
So, just for all of our audio only listeners, it was a dad, quintessential 1987 father walking into his son's room his son is sitting there looking like Marty McFly on the fucking bed, and he pops open a wooden box of what we can assume is drugs. I mean, I'm betting it's a joint maybe or whatever. And the dad's like, "Where'd you learn to do this stuff?" "I learned it from watching you."
They can't hear.
Hmm?
They can't hear.
No, I know,
Okay.
but like, to just shut up. So yeah, what do you think of those?
That's a bold ass statement saying parents who do drugs have kids that do drugs. Because most people, I'm not gonna say most, but a significant amount of people who have shitty parents
Do drugs to escape the shittiness of their parents?
Well, no. Most people that have shitty parents and say their parents shitty and fucking pothead are two different things. But if they're shitty and a pothead, then they're obviously not going to want to go down that same path as their shitty parent.
Right. And if the parent is good and a pothead,
Then that might entice it a little bit.
but at that point, it's like, okay, if you're learning to do it responsibly,
Yeah,
like we did
then
with
it's different.
alcohol,
Yeah,
then it's like,
more acceptable.
right. And
Especially in this day and age.
oh,
then,
for sure.
Back then, though, everyone smoked weed. Like the amount of it's
I
not
mean,
different.
Yeah.
Honest-
Yeah.
Like
I know. Like,
it's just not different. Honestly, now, I think this is a statistic. I'm not going to say it is, but I think marijuana was healthier 30 years ago than
in some instances, yes, I would 100% agree with you.
even though now you're not just buying from some fucking weirdo on the corner, you're buying from an actual dispensary.
In some cases, but
Mo-
a lot of
yeah.
cases, you are buying from some weirdo on the corner, and that weirdo probably got it from a cartel hookup, and it's probably cut with all sorts of fucked up shit, like we get into later.
Whenever we get into that, I have a story.
Oh, great. Story time with Chandler. All right. So a lot more kids decided, hey, let's do drugs because, I don't know, these commercials make it look fun. Deflating into a couch, there are days when that would be incredible.
True.
So
Like we were talking about earlier, the mental health days are needed.
that's exactly it. Smoke a bowl and just chill the fuck out. I'm not advocating drug use by any stretch of the imagination.
But also, you're your own person, so if you want to do it, go
I
get
mean,
high.
yeah.
We're kind of different people.
We
in
are.
that stance.
Well, we're not. I'm very much pro make your own choices and all of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, in 1986, Congress passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which allocated a whopping $1.7 billion to fighting the war on drugs. Do you know how much that translates to, adjusted for inflation?
A lot.
That's $4.7 billion in today's money.
just spent on
like ad campaigns and like let's ramp up the DE, let's establish the DEA and into like a whole ass thing, and that's
just to try to
stop people from doing drugs, and the ones that are doing drugs we're going to reprimand severely so that way they don't do drugs anymore. It's not like it's an addictive chemical that you physically need. Your body thinks it needs to continue going. It's not like that's the case. So let's just throw the book at these guys.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it makes sense. It's not my policy. We'll get into how all of our thoughts on that happen. The U.S. had begun its fight against chemical mind alteration long before Nixon was throwing up peace signs, talking trash about hippies, and helping to open trade relations with China, though. Did you know he did all that?
No.
Yeah, he definitely did do all that. Imagine a world wherein you couldn't go grab a beer after work with friends or relax with a nice stiff cocktail at dinner without being involved in a criminal conspiracy. Well, that was the case in this country for almost 15 years. Now, I imagine that we don't have any listeners or viewers that are old enough to have lived through Prohibition, as it officially lasted from 1920 to 1933. But if anyone over 90 years old is watching this, please let us know. Like, what was Prohibition like? What was it like to have to go to a speakeasy? I mean, if you're that old, you were a child. So what was it like for your parents or grandparents maybe to go to a speakeasy? Any firsthand information on that would be incredible.
Yeah, I doubt it, but yeah.
Yeah, I also doubt it. Spearheaded by proponents of the temperance movement, which advocated for moderation in, and its most extreme form, complete abstinence from the consumption of alcohol. although actual prohibition only banned the manufacture, transportation, and trade of alcohol rather than its consumption. So, in a way, it's different from the war on drugs, but it's like same, still different.
Same, still different.
You know?
Well, and again, might be a stupid question. Back then, were drugs an issue?
Not to the extent that they are now, but the federal government, because they had people knocking at their door every day going, hey, this is morally apprehensible. You need to stop people from doing this. Take their choice away.
Take their choice away.
So it became illegal to sell, distribute, produce alcohol. Not to consume it, but the places that you could consume it were illegal overnight.
Well, something similar to that, like something that will always be known in history, well, hopefully. I turned 18 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And then 8 months later, a law changed overnight.
Right, to where you were no longer allowed to buy.
So, I mean, at
nicotine.
this point, I'd already been addicted to nicotine for like 8-9 years.
Yeah, I mean, a long
But
time. But you could
in
go from
theory-
buying it.
In theory, I had 8 months for them to like let me get addicted.
Right.
And then overnight, you just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that was very
I think the way they did that is like it should have been grandfathered in
100%.
to where if your birthday was before this date, then you couldn't buy it
Yeah.
anymore.
100%.
But it's
That would have overcomplicated things.
I mean, it's the Fed.
It would.
All
It would.
they do is overcomplicate things. Most armchair historians know that prohibition really didn't stop anyone from drinking. It just turned people into criminals and created a foothold for groups like the mafia to start capitalizing. And business was booming. The country saw the rise of bootleggers to produce the newly criminalized liquor, speakeasies to facilitate the sale of it, and drivers for transport. Most of the links in this logistical chain were facilitated by crime families that started making greenbacks hand over fist. And when crime runs rampant, more criminals want their slice. But would any of that ever happen if liquor sales and distribution weren't vilified? We probably wouldn't have NASCAR in its current iteration, but a lot of people would not have died in turf wars over alcohol.
Happen
Yeah, during Prohibition, there were literally gangsters shooting each other in the streets
just over booze.
to be able to move their stuff through specific areas and stuff. Like the Ozarks became rife with moonshiners making and distilling moonshine, and then people transporting it generally up through Canada and then south to evade law enforcement. And that's literally how NASCAR became a thing, is because people were tricking out cars in order to get away from cops.
Okay.
So like the world would have lost out on NASCAR. Whoa. But also people wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
And like it wouldn't have become this weird dark stain in American history.
And I could be very wrong, but I feel like NASCAR fans have just shortened. Like I feel like it's not as big of a deal as it used to be. I could be completely.
I mean, I don't
I've never
I don't know.
watched.
I don't follow NASCAR at all. But I'm simply saying that like we would probably still have racing because like Formula One exists
Yeah.
and like, you know, funny trucks and that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
like you would have racing still,
Just not the reason.
just not from the same origin point that we do, you know. And before I hear anybody tell me the Kennedy family wouldn't have rose to political prominence without bootlegging money, that's something I've heard forever as well. Like it's been a big conspiracy. Like the Kennedys
Yeah.
wouldn't have had their fortune without being bootleggers. Well, according to David Nassau, author of The Patriarch, the remarkable and turbulent times of Joseph P. Kennedy, that simply isn't the case. Joseph Kennedy, the patriarch of the dynastic Kennedy family, so this is JFK's father, was chairman of the SEC, Securities and Exchanges Committee. He had aspirations for his children to move into political careers from very young. He wanted them to be in politics, and was Irish Catholic in a time when that meant that he would have been overly scrutinized. Just for those three reasons alone, he probably wouldn't have been involved in bootlegging at all. In fact, Patrick Joseph Kennedy, which is Joseph's grandfather, so we're talking about JFK's grandfather,
Okay.
had transitioned from running a successful saloon to importing spirits long before Prohibition. And since the federal government didn't confiscate any alcohol brought into the country before the 18th Amendment, which is what caused Prohibition, the only shred of evidence that connects Joseph, which is JFK's dad, to any potential illegalities is that he served some of his father's whiskey stash at his Harvard graduation. But that happened in 1912, before Prohibition. So 100% above board. There is like absolutely no way. And I'm not kicking a dead horse, but I found a lot of evidence refuting this very well-known conspiracy factoid. When JFK was running against Tricky Dick, Nixon had teams of investigators attempting to dig up dirt on the Kennedy family, as you do when you're running a political campaign. We see it all the time now. You best believe that if there was any hard evidence of illicit activity, Nixon would have plastered that shit on buttons, posters, campaign buses. It would have been everywhere. They didn't have TikTok and stuff back then, or Facebook, but it would have been everywhere. So it didn't happen.
Correct.
So the Kennedys were never bootleggers. I just wanted to put that like officially to bed. All right. You good? You look like you're reeling a bit.
Well, so just because the Kennedy being bootleggers is a very, 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 very widespread topic.
Right. Like it's like a well-known fact in air quotes because it's not a fact. Is that something that you had heard before? That the Kennedy family had gotten their money from bootlegging?
Yeah.
And you're not even like super deep into conspiracies, and that's something you had heard.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you like it's out there like as it's in the zeitgeist as like a thing that's real, and it's not fucking real.
Well, it's so hard to just trust anything. Like because they could have been.
Yeah, but
just because it wasn't plastered.
Well, no, that's just like the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of reasons that that was not the case.
All right, that'll have to be for another
it wasn't the
episode or
case.
something.
Oh yeah, when we do JFK, we'll dig into that some more, and I'll formally refute any claims that the Kennedy money comes from bootlegging. All right, now let's discuss something that is perpetually a hot button topic: pooch, bud, jazz cabbage, Mary Jane, the devil's lettuce, pot, herb, chronic, wacky tobacco, grass, weed, or the scientific name cannabis, better known as marijuana. You ready? This is a good one. Okay. What's your like before we jump super far into this, like you've got a little bit of experience with marijuana.
Yeah. I don't think that pot is for everyone.
It's not for me.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I think that it affects every single person differently.
And that's most naturally occurring narcotics, also in air quotes.
Yeah. So like I think honestly, if you are in that realm of your life to try it and you're wanting to try it, you might like it, you might fucking hate it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I think that pot made me the person who I am today.
Interesting.
Not in the aspect of like every
right.
I don't smoke.
Sure.
I haven't been high in over a year.
Right.
It
has been 2 or 3 for me.
So I don't know. It's hard because again, there's people that I know that function better than normal people
while high, for sure.
And but I've had great experiences being high, and I've had very, very bad experiences being high.
For sure.
And so I think it just comes to show that like it is genuinely different for every single person out there.
Yep, I will definitely agree with that. Popularized in the United States by people immigrating from Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, which started in 1910, marijuana, as it was originally called with an H, it was later anglicized, had been used both medicinally and recreationally for a long ass time. Like the cannabis plant is mentioned in a Chinese herbology scroll dating back to 2700 BCE because it was an effective analgesic. I never know how to say that word. It's got anal in it.
So I actually knew that.
Well, anesthetic, antidepressant, antibiotic, and sedative. Like all of those things from what, almost 5,000 years ago at this point. That's crazy. So some of the effects of marijuana. You get a sense of euphoria. The main psychoactive ingredient, THC, stimulates parts of the brain that responds to pleasure, releasing dopamine and creating a feeling of relaxation and happiness. Altered perception. Users may experience a distorted sense of time, visual alterations, and heightened sensory perception. Impaired memory. Short-term memory can be affected during intoxication. The physical effects are increased heart rate. Shortly after consuming, the heart rate may increase, which can be a risk for people with heart conditions. Respiratory issues, because if you're smoking it, you're inhaling smoke. Irritation of the lung and increased risk of bronchitis, as well as lung infections. Pain relief. Some compounds in marijuana, like CBD, are known to have pain relieving effects. Appetite stimulation, often referred to as the munchies. It can increase appetite and food intake. As someone who has done quite a bit more weed in your time than me, you already said it makes you very paranoid. Sometimes.
So like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there's so many strands of marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, there's indica, there's hybrid, which is a combo of both.
Technically, everything that you're ever going to find anywhere in the world now is going to be a hybrid. There are no pure sativa or indica plants that exist, period.
But every strand is different. There's a different percentage of THC in this strand versus that strand. Like there's all weed is different. You're never going to smoke the exact same weed twice. Sure. And that's almost a fact. Like even if you're like, so
even if you're growing it yourself under the exact same look,
it's going to be different.
Everything's going to be different. So personally, I just get the munchies and experience elevated emotions. And I'm a paranoid person in general. So the very few times that I've smoked weed, I get wicked paranoid, which is not a good thing. But I also laughed so hard at a John Mulaney stand-up special that I puked all over myself and then got up and made a whole pan of brownies and did not wait for them to cool.
I'm hearing about this.
Actually,
I was not there. I wish I was.
Actually, our other brother made the brownies.
Yeah.
I just ate them all while they were still molten.
Yes.
Burned the shit out of my hand, but it was great.
And I was told about this the next day, and I was very upset that I didn't get to witness it. But along that note, like there's been times where like whenever I was younger, and I really don't know now that I'm older. I don't know how paranoid I'd get now because I'm more confident in who I am. And like, I'm not really like, if a cop knocks on the door because I'm smoking weed, they're not going to put me in prison.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, so I don't know. There's possibilities there.
Yeah. The possibility is always there when you live in a state where it's
illegal.
Yeah. Still criminalized.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. The last time I honestly, the only thing that went through my head was, like I said previously, I have to be doing something. And so I was playing video games and I was high and I was like, okay. And then I was like, I'm starting to get a little paranoid because I'm not doing anything. So I just had to sit there and like fidget and like shake my legs up and down and like move my head. And that genuinely helped me.
Right.
And that was the last time I smoked weed because I just didn't like that. I didn't like that I had to be tweaking to fucking.
By tweaking, you mean like twitching,
like doing something, like
rather than tweaking, like trying to chew your own ear off.
Yeah, like in the sense of
in a podcast about drugs, there are very different connotations. As you're saying, I'm just throwing that out there.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard.
Yeah, and like especially because you work in construction and stuff, like you can't smoke.
No, well, and that's another very, very big thing is like 9 times out of 10 in the industry that I work in, there's people high.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, and you kind of you're around that environment. And growing up, I mean, I chose the very, very, very good people to all my friends and
shout out Mikey again.
Mikey's great. I love Mikey, and he and I both went through the same shit at the same time. Like, so he's one of the few people that I still am like connected with, whereas the other people were just like they were already doing it before me, you know.
Right.
So it was more or less like, let's get this kid to fucking lose his mind. Like Mikey and I, if we got high and I was like, yo, I'm freaking out, he'd like try to say something.
Yeah, he would try to calm you down.
Or if we were around other people, then he'd be like,
he'd egg it on.
Yeah. And so like it genuinely, it depends on the people you're around when you're doing stuff. But
I mean, as always, like if you're gonna indulge, like do it responsibly.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. Anything in moderation, almost anything in moderation. Not anything, but almost anything like isn't terrible for you. If you moderate, like I mean, I like to drink, you know, I mean, always, but like I moderate myself. I'm not out getting plastered or anything like that. That's how it is for everything. Know your limits.
I apologize for yawning. I'm like 5 and all day.
That's fine. We only have like an hour left.
Yeah. I'm to them.
Oh no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get through this as fast as possible.
Yeah, no.
Back to making the plan a boogeyman. According to Britannica.com, racism is the de facto reasoning behind outlawing weed. While that does play a really big part, and actually seems to be a primary factor still in sentencing, it can't be the only reason. As I stated earlier, it was just after the turn of the century when marijuana started to gain popularity in the US. And as with most mass immigration, xenophobia leads to persecution of people that are different. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
An influx of people come into your country, and all of a sudden they're just the worst. So when any specific thing can be targeted as inherently negative, attributed to that group of people, it's easy to fixate on that. Or people can fixate on completely fabricated bullshit, like the fact that weed causes bloodlust, which is something that was perpetuated. Have you ever known anyone to smoke a blunt and get violent?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either. I've been around a lot of potheads. I've never known anybody to be like, I'm going to fight you now.
I've known people to have a sip of whiskey and get violent.
Sure, yeah. Alcohol.
Like, yeah.
I've known people to do a bit of heroin and get super violent, even though that's supposed to knock you directly on your ass. But I've never seen anybody smoke weed and be like, all right, time to.
That's honestly
time
the
to fight or
one
fuck.
drug that I haven't seen anyone like get extra. Like,
yeah. Same. I'm going to quote Britannica.com here and then expand on it a bit. In the 1930s, Harry J. Anslinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, turned the battle against marijuana into an all-out war. Some believe that he was motivated less by safety concerns, because the vast majority of scientists that he surveyed claimed that the drug was not dangerous, and more by a desire to promote his newly created department. Whatever the impetus, Anslinger sought a federal ban on the drug. And to this end, he initiated a high-profile campaign that relied heavily on racism. Because, you know, you could get away with that back in the day. Anslinger claimed that the majority of pot smokers were minorities, including African Americans, and that marijuana had a negative effect on these, air quotes here, degenerate races. And this is a direct quote from this dude.
imagine someone saying that
Bro,
shit now.
it's a sign of the times, and like we can't hold people to the same moral standards that we hold ourselves today, because we're far more educated now as a whole. But yeah, that's pretty damning actually. Had a negative effect on these degenerate races, such as inducing violence or causing insanity. Furthermore, he noted, again in air quotes here, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. Holy fuck. Perhaps even more worrisome to Anslinger was pot's supposed threat to white women's virtue. He believed that smoking pot would result in their having sex with black men. All air quotes there, because holy fuck. I'm just going to keep going because I don't even know what else to say about that. Aided by an eager news media and such propaganda films as Reefer Madness, which I'll show you a bit in here in a second, Anslinger eventually oversaw the passage of the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937. I'm saying it like that because at this point it was still spelled with an H, which effectively made the drug illegal across the U.S. Although declared unconstitutional in 1969, it was replaced by the Controlled Substances Act the following year. The legislation classified marijuana, as well as heroin and LSD, among others, as a Schedule I drug, and we will get into these schedules later on. Perhaps unsurprisingly, racism was also evident in the enforcement of the law. According to some studies, African Americans in the early 21st century were nearly 4 times more likely than whites to be arrested on marijuana-related charges, despite both groups having similar usage rates. Yes.
So, with that fact, the first person who was ever put into prison for life for marijuana was a white man.
Okay.
A. B. The amount of white people today versus African American people today that smoke weed, the number of African American people hasn't changed almost ever.
Okay.
And that just shows that it's more in their culture to be high. And I don't know if it's an escape.
I'm really concerned about where your point's going.
No. Growing up in LA, right? I had maybe one white friend. Most of my friends were not white.
Yep.
And almost everyone that I knew growing up smoked weed.
Sure.
And that's why I led to.
Yeah.
But now, statistically, the amount of African American people that smoke weed today hasn't really changed from 60 years ago or however long.
Do you by chance have these statistics?
I can pull them up.
I mean, I'm just if you're
This
dead
is stuff that I've seen.
dead set on them and they're 100% legit.
Whereas the amount of white people that smoke weed today is more than triple.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
But that just goes to show that it's more in African American culture, which makes sense.
Well, it turns out it comes from Latin American culture.
Correct. So it makes sense. But it's always portrayed as the black people smoking weed and doing drugs, whereas that's just not the case at all.
Well, it's so the race issue when it comes to drug usage is really hard to pinpoint because finding stats on that is difficult. If you say they're out there, I believe you. I'm not going to quote it as a statistic.
I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
I'd also like to point out how many, genuinely speaking, from personal experiences, how many African American people?
You can say black. It's okay.
No, I know. How many African American people have you seen that are how do I word this? So white people, black people, right?
Yeah.
What's the ratio of white people, black people, other drugs? I feel like I don't see many crackheads that are black. I feel like most of the people fucking slinging shit on the corner and literally tweaking are white people
today.
Yeah.
We live in a predominantly white area, so that's why that.
I'm just saying, even in California though,
because you didn't spend a lot of time in Compton or East LA.
I mean that's true.
So it's out there, and it's the amount of black people that are incarcerated for drug offenses is disproportionately higher than white people. And I do have the actual statistics on a lot of that coming up. But first, let's cue up this Reefer Madness trailer. Reefer Madness, 1936, everybody. Oh, hold on.
My bad, everybody.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Hit that shit.
These high school boys and girls are having a hop at the local soda fountain.
If you're
Innocently, they dance.
if you're just listening, I suggest looking this up
Deadly
yourself.
menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell. In this film, you will see the ease with which this vicious plant can be grown in your neighbor's yard, rolled into harmless-looking cigarettes, hidden in an innocent shoe or watch case.
Hold on.
You can hide weed in a shoe or a watch case.
Hold on. They just made it sound so fucking easy.
Oh yeah, like
all you gotta do is grow a plant.
Well, I mean,
and then take the leaves and just put it in a piece of paper.
Oh yeah, facts. Like there's nothing more to it.
Yeah.
And they were literally growing. If you're not watching this with us or on your own, they were growing it in what looked like an empty lot. You know that's not good fucking soil. And albeit it is a weed, but like you're not gonna have a forest of marijuana just growing in an empty lot.
I just had to point that out because it's not that easy. It's not just like you can grow like you need a system and you need to know what you're doing. And
Yeah, like even like big grow operations, you've got to use hydroponics and grow lights, and you're drawing up more power and like all sorts of shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I
but
just needed
this is the type of propaganda that people of the time were going against. So just keep that in mind as we continue to watch, and it does get fucking it gets crazier.
Okay.
In this startling film, you will see dopesters lure children to destruction.
We're going over to Joe's place. Why don't you come along?
We have a date to play a set of doubles.
Oh, you can play anytime. Come on, we'll have some laughs.
Can I go along with you?
Sure.
Hey, I'll see you at dinner, sis. If you want a good...
Come on, kid, come smoke some jazz cigarettes with us.
Sorry. Genuine question. You might know this, or someone in
the internet land.
Yeah. Everyone talked differently back.
Yeah, that's just how it
Why?
was. Don't you know?
But like, why?
Because like everyone spoke like they were, I don't know, a fucking announcer.
And that just was normal.
This movie, nothing about this movie is truthful.
No.
It wouldn't
But
surprise
it's
me if
not just
people
this,
did
it's
actually
just
speak
that.
like that.
You don't know that. That's
Well, no.
something that you don't know.
So, there's a pretty prominent theory that I don't know the actual numbers on, but it's kind of a conspiracy that's out there that states that people in the UK, right, like the British, twang on things, didn't exist when the US was colonized. That they spoke like somebody with the least ambiguous accent in the US spoke like back then, and it's evolved over time.
Okay.
So like,
my question
Uh-huh.
was like, how, like, evolution is obviously a thing, duh. But how
this is almost this is like 90 years ago. So yeah, I mean, back then maybe everybody did talk like they were the Legend of Korra announcer and the Firefats winning the Earth Cup. Like what? Maybe that's how people actually spoke. I don't know. I wasn't alive back then. If you were fucking alive back then, did everybody talk like that? Let us know.
I thought that he would know. I'm sure someone watching will know.
Maybe.
Asshole.
Yeah, if you're like a linguist historian, hit us up.
Or just ever been high and Googled it.
Or if you've ever time traveled back to the 30s. If you smoked enough weed to time travel,
what the fuck are you? Okay, yes,
I'm
the
just
Badger
saying
hole.
nobody's got first.
We're in the Badger hole, but
hand
you like
experience. Nobody's got first hand experience and could give us any like valid shit. This is a recording from them. That's probably as first hand as you're gonna get. Just saying. Continue this, please.
Smoke? Try one of these.
You will meet Bill,
It's a joy.
who once took pride in his strong will as he takes the first step toward enslavement.
You got kids making out on couches and stuff.
Smoking the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide.
This chick straight up just jumped out of a window because she was high on weed.
Yeah, no.
And the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important film now.
This Nosferatu looking motherfucker is about to have a heart
It is too
attack.
late.
So formerly that was called Tell Your Children, apparently, and they changed it to Reefer Madness because that's going to draw more crowds. And this shit played in like theaters.
How is that like?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're gonna sit there, and you're gonna say, smoking the reefer makes you. I'm gonna go back here a little bit.
Uh-huh.
You're gonna say it makes you a couch potato, lazy. But on same exact fucking hand, you're now a crackhead murdering people, jumping out of a fucking window. Make up your mind. How does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong?
Those ads are like 6 years apart, but yeah, you're not wrong. Like, if there's one thing that propagandists are not good at, it's being consistent for the most part.
True.
So, you know, we got a lot more. You ready?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
ready.
Just to explain so that was Reefer Madness. Fucking complete cockamamie bullshit.
Also, there was a group full of teenagers in there. 7 of them motherfuckers, and all of them had a joint. That's just not how that works.
No, puff pass
Yeah.
always. I mean, back then, I don't know. It might have been like a nickel for like a whole dime bag, or like, I don't.
A nickel was a lot of money back.
Yeah,
So
I guess, but you could also do
equivalent.
that for like your
Equivalent.
3 days on a paper route or whatever.
We don't know. We
really
just
don't
don't know.
I can't imagine being alive back then.
I can imagine it would be kind of cool.
I mean, weed's cheap.
Not really. Inflation, dude.
Yeah, but like it went a lot further. Like you could literally buy like a meal with like less than $1. And that dollar adjusted for inflation is probably like $6 now. Like it's hard to buy a meal for $6 unless
Yeah.
you
It's impossible.
it's not impossible you could do it, but you're not eating well. All right. Back to this though. Just to explain, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, the FBN, was an agency of the United States Department of the Treasury. Keep that in mind. Established by an my notes got weird here. Anyway, the FBN was established June 14th, 1930, consolidating the functions of the Federal Narcotics Control Board and the Narcotic Division. These older bureaus were established to assume enforcement responsibilities assigned to the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act of 1914 and the Jones-Miller Narcotic Drugs Import and Export Act of 1922. It was merged with the Bureau of Drug Abuse Board in 1968 and is considered the predecessor to the DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Agency. Just to reiterate, the Department of the Treasury oversaw this shit. You know what the Department of the Treasury does? They handle the finances for the government.
Okay.
They are the coin purse of the government. So if that's not enough evidence to tell you that this whole thing was kicked up about money,
Duh.
it's right there. And also I have to take notes because there's no way I'd be able to retain all this information, all these dates and names of shit. I can't do it. Yeah, my ADD works the other way, where I'm just like hyper focused on shit, so I'm able to do this. So some of the doctors that the aforementioned racist guy Anslinger spoke to obviously said that marijuana was not dangerous. Some sources said as high as 68% of the doctors he spoke to were like, no, man, it's completely not like none of the shit you're saying is true. And we've all heard the health benefits that marijuana actually has. The fact is that more research needs to be done. And until the negative connotation around it is completely mitigated, I don't see that research getting conducted. Not on a large enough scale to make any sort of difference.
It's impossible to have statistics on something where it literally is different for everyone.
Right. But like So the health benefits of CBD are something that are in the process of being fleshed out and understood. The effect that marijuana has on cancer cells is a big thing that like they're really trying to understand. Until we get rid of the stigma around all of it, we're never going to be able to get to the bottom of like what the actual true bona fide health benefits are. So the next bit about the degenerate racist thing that Anslinger said, I mean, that's just good old American racism, like paired with some fake news, which is definitely not a proud moment of American history. So the fact that the Marijuana Tax Act was declared unconstitutional and then 1 year later was replaced throws up red flags as well.
Correct.
Like, that's insane.
Well, and it's done that more than just once.
Yeah, the government does that often.
Yeah.
Like with the high capacity magazine thing in California. They were like, it's unconstitutional. And then the next week they're like, you can't have 30 rounds in your gun.
Yeah.
Like, make up your fucking mind.
Yeah.
If it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional, is the way I see it. But what do I know?
Clearly not.
Clearly, I'm just an asshole with a podcast. The fact that African Americans were punished more often and far more severely doesn't surprise me. As of April 27th, 2024, which is when the stats that I'm about to spit come from, the Bureau of Prisons reports that 44.4% of inmates are locked up because of a drug charge. That's across the board. That's races. 44%. 44.4% of people that are locked up in federal prison right now are because of fucking drug offenses. Half the motherfuckers.
Right now.
Yes. Half the motherfuckers in federal prison right now are because of drugs.
That's fucking.
That blew my mind when I first like read it. And so I've got all the stats right here. So like banking, insurance, counterfeiting, and embezzlement, the number of inmates is 156, and it goes down a whole list. The one that's closest to drug offenses, which only accounts for 21.9% of all inmates in the federal prison system right now, is weapons, explosives, and arson, which is 31,672.
What was the number? 6,000
for weapons, arson, and explosives. That's 31,672.
Okay.
So how many motherfuckers do you think are locked up for drugs?
72,000.
That's actually not that far off. 64,355.
Yeah.
And this is as of the 27th. Today is the 2nd.
So 4 days ago. 5 days.
5 days ago.
That blows my mind on so many levels just because they literally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure everything is decriminalized in Oregon to keep people out of prison. Correct.
It is. And I've got stats on that too.
So how are you going to do that? Yet the rest of the country that you are a part of is just putting people up for years for a dime bag.
Okay.
A dime bag, by the way, is like barely enough to get you. It's a very, very small amount of marijuana.
Okay, so with those numbers being understood, right, we've got 64,000 people in prison right now in the federal prison system. Keep in mind this is federal for drug offenses. I'm going to just read off the percentage
from in like categories
according to their race. Okay. Because I have those statistics
before you do that, because you'll remember that because it's in front of you. I'd also like to know like the statistics on like, so there's 64,000 people on drug offenses. Out of what percent is like cartel or like moving copious amounts of marijuana or just drugs in general, or what percent of people were just had a little bit of drugs?
Well, if it's federal, I would assume that is like more than 3 strikes offenses, that type of thing. Because like if you're just caught, like you said, with a dime bag, unless it's 3 offenses, because the 3 strike rule does affect
it does still
everyone.
apply.
It does still apply.
Okay. Everyone was in quotation, by the way,
Yeah.
because it doesn't.
Then you're going to be in a county prison or, a city jail or whatever. Like you're getting a much lesser sentence. So I'm assuming that most of these drug offenses, half of the people in the Bureau of Prisons, it was probably some sort of smuggling or, they got pinched on a corner too many times slinging dope, like whatever. Half of the people
in prison
in
have to
federal
do with
prison are there because of a drug offense.
fucking
All right, so I'm going to break down again federal inmates by race percentage real fast. So Asian 1.5%, Native American 2.8%, Black 38.7%, White 57%. But there's a caveat to the white one because ethnicity and race are reflected differently because of some old census data. So like people from Mexico may identify as white, but instead of putting race as Latin origin, they just lump them into white. So that's race. Ethnicity shows that 70.8% of people locked up that fall into that white category are non-Hispanic, and 29.2 identify as Hispanic.
Okay.
So it breaks the numbers down even further, and it's very convoluted and stupid. I get why, but also I feel like we could do, if we're gonna keep stats on this stuff, we should make the stats easy to come at rather than a percentage of a percentage is a different thing, and it's not really what we're saying and everything else. That being said, there are more white people in federal prison, which leads me to believe, based on the numbers, that there are more white people in federal prison for drug offenses than there are black people, which is not it's not what we're constantly told.
Yeah.
Again, this is federal. So state and county numbers are harder to come by, especially this up to date from last week. You're not going to find that with any sort of overarching
And there's so many.
Right. It is literally impossible to get the stats for that. So unlike the prohibition of alcohol, though, the consumption of marijuana was what was made punishable. Right. So like you were caught with a beer, odds are pretty good you weren't getting the shit beat out of you, thrown in a paddy wagon and carted off to jail. But when it comes to marijuana, especially from so far back, then yeah, you were. Statistics from the United States Sentencing Commission published in January of 2023 say this: the number of federal offenders sentenced for simple possession of marijuana is relatively small and has been declining steadily from 2,172 in the fiscal year 2014 to only 145 in the fiscal year 2021. The overall trends were largely driven by one district, the District of Arizona, which accounted for nearly 80% of all federal marijuana possession sentencings since 2014. As the number of such cases in the District of Arizona declined from a peak of 1,916 in 2014 to just 2 in fiscal year 2021. The overall federal caseload followed a similar pattern. Federal offenders sentenced for marijuana possession in the last 5 fiscal years tended to be male, that's 85.5% of them, Hispanic, 70.8%, and non-U.S. citizens, 59.8%. So the vast majority of people that are locked up, according to this, locked up in federal prison for marijuana offenses are illegal Hispanic males. A little over 2/3, at 70%, were sentenced to prison. The average prison sentence imposed was 5 months. As of January 2022, no offenders sentenced solely for simple possession of marijuana remained in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, which is huge. I don't know if that is still an up-to-date statistic. That was January of 2022, so that was over 2 years ago. But if that's the case, that's massive.
Well, Yeah, all of it just fucking blows my mind.
Again, though, grain of salt because, well, it's federal and
The internet,
and and the dates are a long time ago. So I grabbed the most recent data that I could. It's just hard to come by, and that blows my mind, as you will see. So I want to touch on some of the other big drugs, right? And I'm going to try to kind of breeze through these. So opium. The earliest reference to opium growth and use was in 3400 BCE, when the opium poppy was cultivated in lower Mesopotamia. The Sumerians referred to it as fulgil, or the joy plant. The Sumerians soon passed it on to the Assyrians, who in turn passed it on to the Egyptians. Its cultivation spread along the Silk Road from the Mediterranean through Asia, and finally to China, where it was the catalyst for the opium wars of the mid-1800s. In 1803, morphine, the principal ingredient in opium, was extracted from opium resin. Morphine is 10 times more powerful than processed opium. Quantity for quantity. So it's 10 times more powerful. Hailed as a miracle drug, it was widely prescribed by physicians in the mid-1800s. Keep in mind, these are physicians that had no access to things like x-ray machines, no antibiotics, and were pretty likely to just chop a limb off because you got infected.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. They might not have known everything in the world.
No.
Heroin was first produced in 1874 by an English researcher, C.R. Wright, who synthesized morphine. It's like a... I'm going to try. Diacetylmorphine. I don't know. Commonly known as heroin. Normally I've got pronunciation guys, but I stopped writing notes like an hour before I got. No, we're talking about heroin now.
Okay.
By boiling morphine and acidic anhydride together for many hours. In 1898, the Bayer Company of Germany introduced heroin for medical use. Not to constantly turn this into a podcast where I shout out The Wire, but that's what I'm doing because that's what they primarily deal with on that show. So shout out to The Wire for probably the third episode in a row.
I don't think you've made that reference.
Well, I meant to. The number of people who died from a drug overdose in 2021 was over 6 times the number it was in 1999. 6 times.
Holy fuck. How many of those people probably don't know?
I don't know. The number of drug overdose deaths increased more than 16% from 2020 to 2021. That's 1 year. Over 75% of nearly 107,000 drug overdose deaths in 2021 involved an opioid. From 2020 to 2021, opioid-involved death rates increased by over 15%. Prescription opioid-involved death rates remain the same.
You want to hear something super sad?
Let me finish the stat.
Okay.
Heroin-involved death rates decreased by nearly 32%. Synthetic opioid-involved death rates, excluding methadone, increased over 22%. Okay, well, what were you going to say?
So the sad fact about this is from 2020 till now, almost, I look it up while I'm talking, but I'm pretty sure it's like a 68% of people who overdose now are under the age of 18.
I get into that.
You get into that?
Just a bit.
Like that's fucking sad. Because it's not necessarily them trying to kill themselves, it's them not knowing what the fuck they're doing.
Well, not only that, but it's a lot of the times it's fentanyl, which is a synthetically created version.
That's why I brought that up.
Right. No, and that is an opioid, but you've got cases being reported of like, you know, kids will be in class, high school age kids, and they'll be like, oh, hey, you know, friend of mine, do you have an aspirin because I have a headache? And then they pop an aspirin out, hand it to their friend, and then their friend just dies because it's fucking fentanyl. And so that, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you led me down, but I'm going to skip some of my notes now.
There's I saw a video about this a couple weeks ago. There's like over 200 people per hour
that are dying from fentanyl overdoses.
from fentanyl.
Yeah,
Just fucking fentanyl.
So the thing about fentanyl, right, is that it's 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine.
Yeah.
And you can absorb it just by touching it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to ingest it. So like when cops are dealing with potential fentanyl, like if they're not wearing gloves, they can die, and then they've got to be given Narcan to be brought back from literal death. It is fucking scary, and it's just flooding into our country, and it's killing people. It's really scary stuff. And that basically summarizes some of the notes that I just had.
Well, it's terrifying because it's, again, there's people like back in the day, like I used to just have to buy weed from a stranger
Right.
who I didn't know, but I was 13 or 14, however old I was, and didn't care. I just wanted to get high.
Sure.
Like nowadays, that's just killing kids.
Yeah.
Like every fucking day.
Like you go and you're trying to buy a dime bag, and you don't realize that it's laced with fentanyl, and you're like, man, this is really good, and then cardiac arrest, and you're just fucking toast.
Yeah. Fucking terrifying.
It is insane. So LSD. Have you done LSD?
I have not done LSD.
It's a
Relative.
derivative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never done LSD or acid.
Not fun.
Oh yeah.
Didn't do it on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and will never.
You didn't do it on purpose?
No.
Oh. Interesting.
Again, young, dumb. If fentanyl was a thing,
Yeah, you probably would have been dead.
I'd.
Yeah. So LSD was originally discovered in 1938 and then synthesized by Albert Hoffman at Sandoz Pharmaceutical Laboratories in Switzerland in 1943. LSD, which is lysergic acid diethylamide, is a synthetic chemically created psychedelic made from a substance found in ergot, which is a fungus that infects rye grain, which is also what they believe like infected the grain supplies at in Salem and caused the whole Salem witch trials because they were just tripping fucking balls, and so everybody was like, "Oh, they're fucking witches! They're burn the witch." And if you want a great rabbit hole of your own to delve into, Google Albert Hoffman with 2 N's bicycle, and just prepare to have your minds blown. When small doses are taken, it can produce mild changes in perception, mood, and thought. Larger doses may produce visual hallucinations and distortions of space and also time. Another great one that we're definitely 1,000,000% going to do an episode on is Project MK Ultra and Operation Midnight Climax. Do you know what either of those are? So MK Ultra was basically when the CIA was giving LSD to people to try to like increase their extrasensory perceptions, like remote viewing or like astral projection, that kind of shit. Like it was, they were just like, get really high and see if it breaks your brain enough to where you can like be a psychic.
Do things that the human brain
isn't supposed to do. Right. And then Operation Midnight Climax was, and they also like intentionally made people insane in MK Ultra because, well, if you're given heroic doses of LSD on a constant, it breaks you. Operation Midnight Climax, though, was they hired a bunch of prostitutes and then got these prostitutes to give their Johns LSD just to see how it affected like random everyday schmucks on the street. So, like the CIA was watching this happen.
Yeah.
And like those are two things that 100% are like actual factual. The paperwork is there to prove that it was real shit. So the fact that the CIA, in air quotes here, the CIA is not supposed to operate on U.S. oil, horseshit.
Yeah, but
Right. But they're not supposed to.
Correct.
The Central Intelligence Agency is not supposed to operate on U.S. oil.
No, yeah.
Abroad only. And that's never been the case. Okay. I'm literally just going to start blowing through these. Psilocybin, magic mushrooms.
Okay.
I got.
I've done mushrooms.
That's dope. How did it affect you?
Actually, not bad.
That's good.
Like honestly, mushrooms are. I still say this: if you're microdosing, you're not gonna get high, but you're still gonna get the brain effect
Right.
of doing that. Same thing with kind of CBD.
Mhm.
Like if you're not going to get high off of it, but it does help you, whether it be your bones, your brain, like
Muscles
yeah.
is generally what I use
I think
CBD for.
if taken safely and with the right supervision, mushrooms would be a very very good thing.
I mean, that's most of the things that we're describing here, though.
Completely disagree. You don't need supervision to smoke weed, and you don't
Sure.
really need it to do mushrooms either. But like, never once will you hear me say acid, heroin, coke, any of these things.
No,
are, like,
of course
good.
not. But like microdosing these things, like
There might be
I'm gonna
benefits.
get in. Like I'm getting into it.
Okay.
There are studies going on in the US right now concerning microdosing psilocybin and LSD to treat things like PTSD and depression, presumably because LSD seems to have a profound effect on one's perception, giving many users a lasting sense of oneness, like with everything. Like my problems don't matter as much because I'm a part of a greater whole. And psilocybin appears to stimulate and repair the growth of brain cells, specifically in the hippocampus, which is responsible for regulating emotion and memory, according to a 2013 study conducted on mice by the University of South Florida. Like
Okay.
that's huge. Why are we not funding this?
Yeah.
It can repair your brain? You fucking kidding me? Fund it. Throw more money at this shit. Decriminalize it so that we can do this kind of stuff.
Why would they want that?
And that's it. How much of this goes back to we don't want this because we're getting rich off of, whether it be people locked up in the prison system that we only have to pay 11 cents a day to make all these fucking license plates for us, or like whatever, like the pharmaceutical companies that we all know are evil as fuck anyway, that are making money because they're selling you an overly processed bullshit cure when you could just go out in your garden, pick off a little bit of marijuana, smoke it, and all of a sudden, you feel a million times better. Your bones don't hurt. Maybe it cures cancer. I don't know. I'm not espousing that because that's
Possibilities are in
we just don't fucking know.
because we're never given the truth. And I guarantee there's people out there that do know everything, pros and cons with every single.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure there fucking has to be.
Maybe. Who knows? Not me. Cocaine and crack. Cocaine was used by humans the first description that we know of is from the Florentine traveler Amerigo Vespucci in 1451, or he was born in 1451 and died in 1512, so somewhere in that time period. And over the next 3 years, the advantages of cocaine use as a medication were emphasized. And I got more stuff here. Then I'm just gonna. Nowadays, due to the potential harmful effects of cocaine and the risk of addiction, the indications for the use of cocaine as an anesthetic are strictly limited, which means that it does still happen, apparently. I wasn't either. I was like, people are still making coke to like, hey, you're about to have brain surgery, do some cocaine about it. I find that funny.
It actually has to do with coke. I think I was 16 and just at like a normal party, everyone smoking weed, doing coke.
I would like to point out that when I was 16, I was not at cocaine parties, but continue.
Well, I wasn't aware that I was at a cocaine. Just there's weed and booze. That was about it.
Sure.
But then there was this one person who went around and was like, yo, go do something to everyone. I was like, actually, I'm good. Thanks.
Right.
Like, I'm not intoxicated to the point where I'm going to say anything.
Right.
Plus, I'm not 13 anymore. So, like,
Right, I'm not 13. I'm not going to do coke with you,
I'm
random
not.
citizen.
Yeah. Like, I had more awareness for myself.
Sure, if you would have come at me 3 years ago, I'd be doing a hard line with you right now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was a YOLO kind of like, end it.
Hashtag YOLO swag.
I said no. And then he and I and a few other people were just chatting. And he was like, you need a drink? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he put coke into my
Oh,
beer.
he spiked your drink?
Yeah.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hung out with awesome people.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't like know this guy until that night.
Oh.
Yeah. Like I knew of him, but like didn't ever like speak with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick. Not really.
No,
It's
not really at
terrible.
all.
If you ever spike someone's drink, I hate you, and
You deserve to be in prison, unlike half the people.
facts. 1,000,000%. Yeah, I do agree with that. Interesting to note that cocaine is a big no-no because of its addictability, but Xanax is handed out like candy in the States. So, like, you know, you got rappers literally doing like
A lot.
30 fucking bars of Xanax on TikTok and then just dying.
What's the drug for ADHD?
Which one? Ritalin?
No.
There's another one.
Fucking wow.
I don't know. I've looked at so much drug shit over the past 2 weeks. So like I can't keep my mind straight about it anymore, to be completely honest with you. Okay, so we were just talking about coke. Now we're talking about crack, right?
Yeah.
Crack cocaine is highly addictive and is produced by the conversion of cocaine into a smokable form that could be sold in smaller portions but distributed to more people. The name crack is attributed to the crackling sound that is made when the substance is smoked. Crack began to be produced in the early 1980s. The method is to dissolve cocaine hydrochloride into water with sodium bicarbonate, which is just baking soda, which precipitates solid masses of cocaine crystals. Unlike powder cocaine, crack was easier to develop, more cost-effective to produce, and cheaper to buy, which made it more economically accessible, especially in lower-income areas, i.e. the projects, which is where the crack epidemic really started to take off. Crack cocaine was noted for its instantaneous and intense high, which kept users craving more, thus causing an upsurge in crack cocaine addictions. Between 1982 and 1985, the number of cocaine users between both crack and powder cocaine increased by 1.6 million people. That's a lot of motherfuckers on coke, bro. Crack or coke, both. Their crack cocaine is cocaine. It's just a different form. Methamphetamine. You ready? Okay. American pharmaceutical company Smith, Kline and French began marketing the amphetamine inhaler for use in asthma and nasal congestion in 1932. Their inhaler medication, called Benzedrine, was initially available without a prescription. People soon discovered its euphoric, energizing side effects. Because of these stimulant-type effects, pharmaceutical companies began to manufacture Benzedrine in pill form for narcolepsy, a sleep disorder.
I heard that.
That's fucking crazy. Oh man, you got some seasonal allergies, you got the sniffles. Do some fucking meth to help. Yeah. Bonkers. But so many of these started as like medicines.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that kills me. And then, you know, today we're producing these medicines that are potentially terrible and super addictive. We know they're addictive. They're opioids. But like we're still just giving them to kids, to old people, to everybody. Like, you want some Xanax, you want some Ritalin, like doesn't matter what you want. You want it here. Take it.
Fun fact, there is a drug that you can buy over the counter.
Uh-huh.
You know what it is?
No.
I'm not going to say it just because it is like it's more than 3/4 of like meth. Like you need that, a few more other ingredients. You have meth. It's an allergy and like acetaminophen pill, essentially.
Huh.
Yeah. That you can just buy at fucking Walmart.
Sick. Yeah, I don't know. During World War II, German pharmaceutical company Temmler marketed methamphetamine tablets as a non-prescription drug under the brand name Pervitin. Funny name. Pervitin. Methamphetamine triggers a response in the body that's similar to adrenaline, heightening alertness and a willingness to take risks. Like, perhaps, I don't know, kamikaze yourself or any of the other major atrocities of World War II. In fact, Hildebrand chocolate candies were marketed to contain Pervitin. So, you know, Nazi meth chocolate was legitimately a thing. In the 1980s, the U.S. began to tighten regulations around the sale and use of ephedrine, a pharmaceutical precursor used to make crystal meth. As a result, illegal meth labs turned to an easier-to-obtain precursor, pseudoephedrine, a chemical found in many cold medicines. Use of crystal meth in the U.S. exploded in the early 1990s. Between 1994 and 2004, methamphetamine use rose from just under 2% of the U.S. adult population to approximately 5%.
So
Doubled.
did you hear what you just said?
Uh-huh.
Do you now know what the over-the-counter drug is?
Oh, yeah, the pseudoephedrine.
Sudafed.
Yeah, Sudafed.
Yeah.
Well, like nasal decongestions are a schedule narcotic, which is insane to me. But
like,
yeah, no, I know. I've seen Breaking Bad as well.
Oh, I've never watched it.
You're missing out. Shout out Breaking Bad.
Should I watch it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it.
You should watch that, and then once you're done, watch El Camino, and you will be like, my mind is completely blown, shattered. It's gone. In 2006, the United Nations World Drug Report called meth the most abused hard drug on planet Earth. That's in 2006. Today it's probably fentanyl.
I wouldn't say fentanyl's abused.
Well, there are people that do take it,
which is fucking stupid.
Like on purpose. Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I get it. Like, you want to do some fucking crack, you want to do some meth, like, you do you. But like fentanyl, dude, that's literally killing people every fucking day.
So fentanyl is between 500 and 1,000 times stronger than opium. Fucking opium. Which we fought. Well, we didn't fight, but wars were fought for that.
Well,
I never fought in the opium wars. While Adderall and Ritalin have some chemical properties in common with methamphetamine, they are generally considered safer when taken at prescribed doses and under the supervision of a medical practitioner. Misuse of the drugs, however, can lead to addiction because they're fucking meth.
Literally. Well, and the other ADHD pill.
Yes, that's
and the amount of people that I knew that, and I mean, I've taken Adderall, not in the sense of getting high, but like in the sense of like my brain goes 1,000 in it, which Adderall does quiet everything down in your head, but it's also super fucking addictive.
Yeah.
Like the amount of people I went to high school with that like they'd start off and it'd be a week, and then the next week they'd be taking 2 or 3 pills a day. Like,
yeah, no. when I went to college, there were a couple of kids that were, yeah, it was
just sad.
It was rough, man. Before I get into the schedules of drugs, I'd like to point out that keeping up with the specific chemical compounds is something that synthetic drug manufacturers can do far quicker and more efficiently than the U.S. government. So something created in a lab that's a derivative of an existing narcotic compound, you take that, you change it up, and you're ahead of the curve, right? It's not illegal because it's technically different. For example, Delta-8 THC, which comes from the CBD in hemp, is legal at federal levels, but has recently been outlawed in some states. So like it got real popular there for like, what, 2.5 years?
Bro.
And then like Wyoming recently outlawed it.
Oh, is it outlawed now?
Yeah. It's illegal to buy Delta-8.
How come it's still being sold?
I don't know.
I'd like to point out that Delta-8 is essentially fucking spice. It's chemicalized marijuana.
Yeah, synthetic marijuana, right?
So how the fuck are you going to allow someone to purchase that in Wyoming, which they have been for 2 years?
Well, because it's a hemp derivative rather than a marijuana.
I don't give a flying fuck.
Rather than a cannabis derivative.
Right? You're going to allow someone to go and buy the same fucking thing that is just chemically engineered.
Same, but different, but still same.
Yeah. Same, but different. Like, it's way worse for you than just a normal fucking, like, THC. Like, there's so much other shit in it.
Yeah.
And it's literally engineered in a lab.
Oh, I know.
But Wyoming allowed you to sell that for 2 fucking years, yet
where
marijuana,
you couldn't just
buy marijuana.
Plant a literal weed in your garden, go out.
That shit
chop that.
Confused me so much.
Roll it in some paper and smoke it because it's that easy.
And if anyone out there that's spice can agree to this, spice.
You're talking the shit from Dune, right?
I don't know what reference you're talking about. I'm missing something here, guys.
You're missing a lot. It's okay though.
I have no life. I work.
Yes, I watch movies.
Yeah, I don't.
On TV.
But spice and like Delta-8, same, different.
But still the same, right?
Like, and spice is so not good. Do you know spices?
No, but I'm gonna keep reading because we've got a lot more, and you're over there looking like Aelin when he gets exhausted. Eyes are red, and you're like,
You mean I look high?
a little bit.
Yeah,
If you start screaming at me, you're a dead ringer for my kid. Swear to God. The Controlled Substances Act was passed in 1970, organizing narcotic substances into 5 categories or schedules. The DEA is largely responsible for the designation and evaluation of these drugs. Drugs are sorted into their schedules based on their potential for use, their legal status, and their medicinal uses. Schedule 1 is for the drugs with the highest dangers, and Schedule 5 is for narcotics with a relatively low potential for addiction. 1 is the worst. 5, they're like, it's okay. Okay? All right. It's not okay. It's still a narcotic, but like, it's slightly more okay.
In their eyes.
Huh?
In their eyes.
In their eyes. Right. Okay, so Schedule 1.
Yep.
So, I'm going to read the Schedule 1 drugs. Are you ready?
You know what? No, I'm just not ready.
Marijuana.
Is number 1.
Number 1.
Holy fuck.
Ecstasy, heroin, LSD, and peyote.
Peyote is the best.
No, peyote they consider to be one of the most addictive.
Okay.
And it has no medicinal properties,
No. Okay.
according to the scheduling.
Okay.
Marijuana.
It's not the most
No shit.
at all.
I'll give you ecstasy. I'll give you heroin. I won't give you LSD. I won't give you marijuana. I won't give you peyote. Those should not be Schedule 1 drugs.
Peyote should. Isn't peyote like nuts? Or am I wrong?
I don't know. I've never done peyote because I've never gone to like South America and gone on a fucking spirit quest.
Isn't it like a fucking elephant drink? Like, isn't that what peyote is?
No.
What the fuck, peyote?
It's like an herb that is mixed with a whole bunch of other
okay,
shit.
okay.
Like it's natural.
Okay.
What the fuck are you thinking?
There's a new drug or something.
Again, it's impossible
Alligator. Alligator. I don't know.
Alligator?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that is a thing. I'm pretty sure that
There's
like,
something that,
after bath salts became a thing, alligator became a thing.
it's not called
And like
alligator.
people were like
it's something.
eating other people's faces and shit, and you get like all these crazy rashes on you.
Something.
Crocodile, maybe?
Crocodile. I don't.
It's not Crocodile Dundee. That sounds like a strain of weed.
It probably,
It probably is.
I don't know, but there's some sort of like horse drink or something. Oh, that's a thing too.
Oh,
People
yeah.
are-
Yeah, that's ketamine,
yeah.
which is on here. Okay, so Schedule 2. Methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl, Vicodin, oxycodone, and Adderall are Schedule 2. Those are less addictive than marijuana, peyote, LSD, ecstasy, heroin. I would just like to keep pointing out
How many schedules are there?
there's 5.
And 5. The 5th one's like the least bad.
Yeah.
But marijuana's on that first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the thing.
All right.
Schedule 3. Anabolic steroids, testosterone, and ketamine.
No.
Testosterone is an addictive I mean, like,
I'm sure it is.
I'm sure it is too because of the way it makes you feel, but like,
Shut the fuck
your
up.
body produces it naturally. So, what are we talking about here?
Fucking stupid.
Yeah. Schedule 4. Xanax, Ambien. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Ativan, but it's Ativan. I've not heard of that one. And Valium. And Valium is a pretty hardcore tranquilizer. I've been on Valium a couple times. I would not. I personally didn't find it addictive. I was just like, dude, I feel slow as fuck and I want to take a nap. Schedule 5. Cough suppressants.
Like NyQuil?
NyQuil. Not ZQuil. I'm fairly certain that's why they made the ZQuil different from the NyQuil, because now you got to take both to get the full effect of what NyQuil used to give you 5 years ago, and it's fucking bullshit.
No, NyQuil still does that.
No, NyQuil is just a cough suppressant. It does not have the sleep aid in it. That's why they made ZQuil.
No, it does. I have NyQuil in my bathroom.
Is it an old one?
No.
I'm fairly certain you're wrong, but it's fine. I will like this next bit, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, perhaps. As of yesterday, May 1st, 2024, the DEA has publicly stated that marijuana is being moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Okay.
What will that mean for people currently incarcerated under marijuana offenses?
Hopefully lighten sentence.
Probably won't mean shit.
Well, probably not. But
Probably.
hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, in a perfect world,
lighten
let's let everyone that's in jail for a marijuana offense out.
well,
Unless you were like muling it or something, but even at that, like, I don't give a shit.
And yeah, there's still stipulations. Again, back to the responsibility of do things responsibly.
Right.
Like if you're fucking moving a couple pounds of weed, like that's not a good look on you, unless you're someone famous. And if you're someone famous and you get busted with a couple pounds of weed, not shit's gonna happen.
If you're famous and white.
Even if you're famous and black.
Yeah. Okay. Perhaps. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. He just oh no.
Technical difficulty.
I would like to point out that we are an hour and 40 minutes into this podcast.
Dang, we're doing good.
An hour and 40 minutes.
Plus whatever was
No,
from before.
That's
That's total? We're doing great.
We hope you fall asleep to our soothing voices.
Yeah, at the very least, like, we're great for background noise.
Well, I am. I don't know about you.
Whoa. Where was I?
At least.
Oh yeah.
Almost done.
We're getting close. All right. Now we're getting into the DEA themselves. And I pulled this straight off their own website. The mission of the Drug Enforcement Administration is to enforce the controlled substance laws and regulations of the United States and bring to the criminal and civil justice system of the United States or any other competent jurisdiction those organizations and principal members of organizations involved in the growing, manufacture, or distribution of controlled substances appearing in or destined for illicit traffic in the United States, and to recommend and support non-enforcement programs aimed at reducing the availability of illicit controlled substances on the domestic and international markets. And that last part, well, that whole thing is like word fucking vomit. Like what? So basically what they're saying is like, we're the drug guys. We're like the guys when it comes to drugs. So like, don't fuck with us because like drugs and stuff.
That's literally. Yeah.
But also, like, we try to help. But that last part was added in there as like a little like, oh shit, we should say that we like do community outreach. But the thing that really kills me is when it says or any other competent jurisdiction, because it sounds a lot like they don't have any really defined jurisdiction. They can kind of do whatever they want, like the CIA.
Ding ding ding.
Right. I know. I just
right on them.
That's from their actual website. It says it right there, plain as day, guys. So
you know what's crazy to me?
What?
People like you're saying all this. I was gonna say weeb. I'm not saying shit, but you're saying all this, and it's like people might even take to and go look at it or whatever.
Oh yeah, by all means, it's DEA.gov. Like, go take a peek for yourself.
But people would still make some sort of excuse. I'm not saying people watching, but like that's like,
and I'm sure that there is. I mean, that was so many words put together in a way that like makes me want to go to sleep. That I'm pretty good at like doing the words and stuff and the word things, and that still jumbles my brain. So I've been watching a lot of Contraband seized at the border.
Okay.
Right. And if you haven't seen it, it's well worth the watch. It's, Border Patrol busting drugs coming in. It's fucking awesome. But one of the things that I've noticed watching the show that I'm very kind of like, what the fuck about? Is like, well, first off, they find shit that doesn't you wouldn't think. Like they found a couple of kilos of cocaine hidden inside the adhesive of cardboard boxes.
Inside
the adhesive, like the sticky shit that keeps the cardboard box together, like the panels. They found fucking cocaine in that shit.
Like in the
like in the fucking adhesive. It's not even tape. It's the shit in between the cardboard.
Oh
yeah, that's fucking outrageous to me. But the reason that I bring this up is because over a certain weight, the Border Patrol officers hand the drugs over to the Department of Homeland Security, not the DEA. So where exactly does one organization's purview fall, vice the other one?
Yeah.
And is it simply because they're trying to come across the borders, so it's a Department of Homeland Security issue rather than a drug enforcement agency issue? But wouldn't you think that it would be the DEA because it's drugs in the U.S.? Because they're seizing it in the U.S. Drugs. It's in their fucking name.
Drugs.
So what the fuck?
Drugs is the D.
All right, I haven't actually. Your beard's on the. You're probably gonna get a little scratchy there.
That might be good.
Little fun tidbit about the DEA. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So Nixon, Richard Nixon, made Elvis Presley, like Elvis fucking Presley, the king of pop or the king of rock, an honorary DEA agent.
You know how many drugs he did?
I do actually. Replete with a badge and everything because Elvis wrote Nixon a letter condemning illegal drugs that were coming into the U.S. Hey Nixon, Mr. President, I'd really like to say that I denounce all these illegal narcotics entering our country, our fine country, and I'd like to be able to help you do something about that.
Doing them all.
Yeah. Elvis had a personal doctor that prescribed him literally whatever he wanted. Like he would fly around with pounds of
coke.
Well, not coke, but prescription drugs.
Just pills.
But because they were prescribed, it's all good. And the best part of the story is that to pay Nixon back for making him an honorary DEA agent, Elvis showed up to the White House the same day with a Colt 1911. I swear to fucking, you can't make this shit up. Colt 1911 with silver bullets in an engraved box. And I've got a picture of it right here. It's still on display at the White House. There you go. Elvis goddamn Presley gave that to Richard Nixon for making him an honorary DEA agent. Can you imagine being a Secret Service agent that day? Holy shit. Elvis is here.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He has a gun.
Well, no, first part. Elvis is here. Whoa, now he's a DEA agent. He's showing everybody his badge. That's nuts. He leaves. He comes back. Whoa, Elvis is back. Holy fuck, he's got a gun. Mr. Presley, stop right there. You can't walk into the White House with a fucking gun. You can't do that. Even if you are Elvis. Well, actually, you can get into the White House with a gun if you're Elvis, apparently. That bitch is still on display. And like that's nice. It's an engraved 1911. Look at that.
Yeah, no, that's very, very
like I would rock that. It's got some nice walnut grips. Beautiful. So
all right.
There it is. Right
it was just pulling this up so that you guys could also see it. It's gold.
No, it's not.
Okay,
that's a better picture. One with flash. Yeah.
I'm just gonna show you guys. I'm not gonna crop it or anything. Just not take time. But that is a very nice.
That's a slick looking gun. I would not mind having that in my.
Elvis walked into the White House with.
It was in the case. It was like in the case. And he's like, "Hey, Mr. President, I want you to have this gun." Like, what the fuck?
Like what?
What the fuck, right? Yeah, that's, bro. There's pictures. Like it happened. Mr. Presley, you do a great impression of the Jazz.
That is insanity.
I love these crazy little tidbits, man. And my notes fucked themselves up again.
Well,
Found it. I found it. We're good. All right. So now we get into the money aspect of this whole thing.
Elvis.
How much money has been spent and has anything changed? It's estimated that the United States spends between $29 and $51 billion annually on these initiatives.
On
The war on drugs. In 2021, after over 50 years of the drug war, estimates of cumulative U.S. spending have broken $1 trillion.
holy fuck.
$1 trillion. That's one plus a fuckload of zeros.
Plus a fuckload of zeros.
That doesn't include court costs, providing for inmates, or the financial impact on individuals that are like incarcerated or have to go through trial or anything like that. And that's just in the US, not including the rest of the world.
A
$1
lot.
trillion goddamn dollars, people.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. So let's talk about Colorado real quick because we're right down the road from it.
Yeah.
And they've legalized marijuana
Yeah.
for recreational use as well as medicinal.
Yeah.
And they've gotten pretty famous for it because they've done a good job, honestly. So in 10 years, according to this chart, which I took directly from the state of Colorado's website, 10 years. So in 2014, the total amount of money that they made on the taxes from marijuana sales.
Because that's all that Colorado makes money off of whenever it's in regards to marijuana.
Yeah, it's
They
just the
don't make-
tax.
They don't make the actual sales percentage or
Right.
anything.
That's done in the individual dispensaries.
They just make.
So for medicinal users, that's a 2.9% tax. You walk in, you've got your green card, 2.9%. 15% tax for recreational users.
Okay.
So in the first year, from February to December, they made $67 million
Holy shit.
in the straight tax revenue. So that's in 2014. In 2024, and this is just from January to March, 3 months. The amount that they made in the calendar year was $64,429,656. The total to date, though, which is the impressive number, is $2,682,587,388 motherfucking dollars.
Since 2014.
That's 10 years of weed being legal in Colorado.
They made $2 billion.
2.7 billion with a B dollars.
Just off of fucking taxes.
Yep. Keep in mind that the state can only spend that money for health care, to monitor the health effects of marijuana,
No.
health education, substance abuse prevention, and treatment programs, as well as law enforcement. I saw a couple of places that they can also use it for schools, but I think that specifically applies to that they can use it for education, but I think that applies to education about marijuana.
But there's also holes and like ways to twist that, because there's literally dispensaries that sponsor everything.
Well, I'm sure that's a tax write-off or some other sort of crazy loophole.
Correct.
But like the dispensaries aren't Colorado. Like it's not the government, it's not the state government.
True.
It's
That's
just
true.
the tax money from the sale of every article, every what's the word I'm looking for? Piece of paraphernalia, from an e-pen all the way up to just straight bud. It's the tax from that is what the state gets.
That isn't
$2.7 billion.
Oh, fuck.
Yet they can't afford to fix their roads.
Dude,
I'm
Colorado
just
has
saying.
the worst fucking
Like-
roads.
like,
if
shout
you live
out.
there. I'm sorry.
Yo, I-25 heading south from like Cheyenne. Whoa.
Oh, so bad.
Our trucks vibrate like
I have a
fucking
nice
terrible.
truck.
And I've got a decent truck, and it's horrendous. Fix your fucking roads. All right.
Fix the fucking road.
But that's crazy though. 2.7 billion in 10 years. If we did that nationwide,
dude.
So that just let's say that times 50, right? Or that times 49.
But what would that?
And if that was going into every state's pocket individually, we would not have nearly as much lobbying for states to get a specific cut of the federal spending. Like the federal budget could be cut. We could decrease our deficit by like, why the
do
fuck?
all these things, but those wouldn't. That shit wouldn't happen. Look at Colorado. They've made $2.4 billion, yet nothing.
2.7, and yeah, they can't fix their roads. No, but apparently, they've been able to do a lot of good. I don't know how much good because I didn't specifically look into that because I was tired of fucking writing notes.
Okay, but they haven't done good to help the people that are just Colorado residents.
But they very well could have.
I mean, I guess that's
like.
fair.
I will say Denver 15 years ago versus Denver today, like downtown Denver, you see way less tweakers on the street.
Yeah.
So maybe those community outreach programs that they're required to put a little bit of money into from that 2.4 or 2.7 billion dollar might actually be doing good.
Yeah, that's possible.
So then we've got the other end of the spectrum, Oregon, right? You mentioned that earlier. So in 2020, Oregon voters passed a bill. 58% is what it was approved with. So 7% positive. Passed a bill called Measure 110 that directed the state's cannabis tax revenue toward drug addiction treatment while decriminalizing personal use, in air quotes, amounts of illicit drugs. Possession of under a gram of heroin, for example, is only subject to a ticket and a maximum fine of $100. Those caught with a small amount can have the citation dismissed completely by calling a 24-hour hotline to complete an addiction screening within 45 days. But those who don't do a screening are not penalized for failing to pay the fine. So basically, we catch you with a little bit of whatever. You're good. Nothing. That's fine. Here, pay us $100, but if you don't, it's also okay. In the year after the law took effect in February 2021, only 1% of people who received citations for possession sought help via the hotline. 1%. And that's directly from the state auditors. As of last June, the hotline received an average of 10 calls per month that were related to citations. According to an OPB.org article from January of this year, in 2019, 280 people died from drug overdoses in Oregon. Fatalities rose every year after, more than tripling by 2022 when 956 died. And last year, even more people died, according to preliminary data. Each month, the number has been higher than the previous year, reaching 628 in June. The state is still compiling data for 2023, but if the trends continue, the total would reach 1,250 deaths from overdoses. The number of patients seeking help in emergency departments and urgent care centers also rose last year to more than 300. The overdose trend is expected to continue this year. So they jumped the shark is what I feel like happened.
100%. I mean, they're the only ones that have even played with the idea of.
They're the only state that's done that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, and honestly, if I'm being quite frank, I just feel bad for the residents, the normal residents that live in Oregon.
Right. Because
you now have a shit town that is full of,
and
no offense, plain out druggies who don't care.
Yeah.
They just want to get high.
So if you look at like Colorado and then Oregon, Colorado did it and they were like, okay, we're going to make money and we're going to put that money back into like,
the government.
Back into helping our citizens, right?
Yeah.
And with Oregon, they tried to do the same thing, but the only thing they could tax was weed, because you're not going to a state-run dispensary and buying fucking black tar heroin.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're still getting their hands on this shit, laced with whatever else, cut with whatever else, And it's just like, okay, we've decriminalized it. Great. So now you've got people that not only are not afraid to be caught with it, but don't care who sees them do it, which is for people that are very, 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 very dependent on drugs. Those are the only things that keep them from doing drugs everywhere all the time.
Correct.
And that is simply because there is a stigma around it, and the potential for being caught and penalized is greater. So I'm just gonna keep going.
Go for it.
So I know that like I'm sure many of you, and I'm sure you as well, Chandler, used to think that Amsterdam was the place for drug-fueled debauchery, right? You always heard it. Like, you want to do whatever? Amsterdam.
Yep.
That's not even remotely the case. According to Amsterdam.info, Dutch drug policy is directed by the idea that every human being may decide about the matters of their own health. Another idea which guides Dutch laws is their drug policy is a conviction that hiding negative social phenomena makes them worse, because when concealed, they become more difficult to influence and control. Applying these ideas to their drug laws, the Dutch have decriminalized the consumption of soft drugs, making it a private matter of each individual, and not a matter for the enforcement apparatus. However, production, trading, and stocking drugs remain a criminal offense. The Dutch see the use of drugs as a health matter, similar to obesity, alcoholism, and tobacco smoking. They also point to the fact that prohibition of alcohol in the U.S. in the years 1919 to 1933 brought many negative effects. The laws in Amsterdam are like this. Marijuana possession in personal consumption amounts is completely legal and is sold in coffee shops, but there are specific laws in place, like the shops can't advertise it, you can't sell it to minors, all of the stuff that you would think of that makes sense for this. And you also can't consume it in public. Up until November 1st of 2008, psilocybin mushrooms were also legal to possess in small amounts, and they were sold in the same coffee shops. So I guess that with those two, paired with the fact that prostitution is legal and regulated in the Netherlands, that's why so many people have this idea that, like, you know, the red light district is just just a crazy, like, sex orgy. But that's not the case at all. No. It seems like they've done a very smart, like, regulated approach to soft drug use, what they consider soft drugs, which is psilocybin, which is now illegal, and marijuana. And, like, it wasn't even an issue. What is magic mushrooms.
Oh.
Do you want to cue this up?
So this is the year that everything was decriminalized in Oregon, and just showing how just different in the span of 8 to 9 months Oregon changed. Just because people didn't care anymore.
Portland specifically.
Yeah, this video is Portland specifically. But it's just like, people didn't care. Like you had pointed out, people didn't care if they were seen. People didn't care, like,
right.
So like,
Governor of Oregon has declared an emergency for the city of Portland just a few years after it became the first state in the nation to largely decriminalize drug use. Very interesting story here. There had been hope that a more humane approach could help curb addiction overall, but it hasn't worked out that way, at least so far. Adam Yamaguchi of CBS Reports shows us that many people are running out of patience.
Narcan.
Yeah, there were used vials of Narcan just on the street.
The state of Oregon appears to be
taking, you know, that shit's like $15,000 a hit.
Crisis plaguing its largest city.
Crazy.
The 90-day emergency order for fentanyl use, issued by the governor, establishes a command center and more coordination between emergency.
There was a dude literally smoking what looked like crack out of a pipe.
Additional funding. The goal is to give the city's residents a chance.
And these are the streets in Portland.
Tent cities. You've got foil, which you could use was for heating up heroin or something.
People in the throes of a fentanyl addiction can hardly walk into a clinic without having to use again.
Everyone has Narcan?
Oregon paved the way as the first state to decriminalize drug use, passing Measure 110 in 2020. Instead of incarcerating addicts, it focuses on addiction recovery.
You're going to call one of these numbers?
We were with Portland police last year as they handed out citations to fentanyl users in the street.
My full-time job is fentanyl, and basically all roads lead to fentanyl in downtown Portland.
But in the years since Measure 110 was passed,
Jesus,
overdose deaths have continued to rise, prompting local leaders to call for more than just the emergency order, but the recriminalization of drug use.
We've had 3 years of this law that has not delivered on the promise that voters thought they were getting.
Ebony Brawley doesn't want to see Oregon's law repealed. The Portland resident says it helped her avoid prison and turn her life around.
Because of Measure 110, I was able to change my story and break those chains, you know.
So, how insane is the fact that you have police officers
whose entire job is now dedicated to fentanyl
and to shooting people with Narcan?
Right.
How fucking insane is that?
Well,
like,
yeah. Let me.
It blows my mind.
We're gonna get into out of the badger hole in just one sec.
Okay.
I'm just gonna list off some sources that way nobody like comes at me or anything. OnGov.net, the CDC, the National Library of Medicine, History.com, Britannica.com, Museum.dea.gov, so the actual like DEA's museum website, med.nyu.edu, appnews.com, findlaw.com, and the National Institute of Drug Awareness is where I pulled the vast majority of my information from, unless I cited everything in the actual text itself. So, okay, let's pop out of the badger hole now. What do you think? What can so for the let me start. Do you think that Black people are disproportionately incarcerated for drug offenses? Or do you think that they're convicted more than white people? Not at a federal level, but at like smaller time.
Statistically, no.
Statistically, that's for federal.
Okay. I wouldn't say so, no. Because I mean, again, I pointed it out earlier, but the crackheads that I see on the corner, yes, I know we live in a
It's
small
confirmation bias a little bit because we
Yeah.
do live in a predominantly white region of the country.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'd say it's got to be close to even.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
It has to be. I mean, just like,
Again, I wish that I could have found more statistics like about it. Even just at like if I could have taken a population like Southern California and just found the stats for all of that, but it
wasn't possible.
Yeah, if you can find that, please send that to me. I'd love to see the stats, but I couldn't, and I literally spent almost every day of 2 weeks doing research.
Which is nuts.
I like to be thorough, bud, and I glossed over quite a bit of what I had.
And we now have a 2.5 hour episode, so
all right. Okay. Like, I guess the other question is, what do you think we should do? How do we fix this in the US? Because it's pretty obvious that the war on drugs as it stands right now is not working.
honestly, it's just being gaslit. Oregon is stupid for taking the jump that they did because it went from you couldn't even have marijuana.
Yeah, it went from 0 to 100. Well, no, that's not true actually. They had gone the same way as Colorado, which is where all of their tax money was all going toward the funding of this new program, which was
stupid as fuck.
Yeah. Kind of seems like it backfired quite a bit.
I don't know. I think that there should, genuinely speaking, again, this is coming from someone who doesn't smoke. I think that there should be states. I think that it should be decriminalized marijuana. It should be decriminalized almost.
Okay.
Not in the sense of it's legal and you could still get fined or even potentially jail time depending on how, but you're not going to go to prison, right?
So you think that they should go like Amsterdam style? Like if you have enough for personal consumption, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
So long as you're not
A,
muling it
doing it in
across
public,
borders,
doing
and
it while you're driving.
you're not giving it to
like
kids.
just being fucking smart people. Like
But treat it
it's
like
not-
alcohol.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
Yeah,
Like it's not hard. But even at that, alcohol you can drink in public. I don't think people should be smoking in public.
Well, that's true. I've never seen. Well, I've bartended a lot of places. You kind of can get secondhand drunk, but it's nowhere near the same as
Yeah.
like an actual secondhand high.
So like I think that that's something that should happen, and then I think there should be a good balance of states across the country that it is completely legal. So if you want to drive and go get some, you can drive and go get some. But I do think
But
that
then,
there's
if you went to go get some and then you're driving from a state that where it's legal to a state where it's not illegal, then that's
as long as it's
that's a federal
decriminalized
crime.
though.
If it's federally decriminalized
That's
across
what
the
I'm saying.
board,
That's
then
what I'm saying. So like
but then that's federal oversight telling states what
Yeah.
to do,
correct.
which I'm not a fan
Mm.
of personally.
I mean, same. But at the same time, I do think there should be states because I mean, there's people in this country that are not cool with marijuana at all,
Right.
and don't want anything to do with it in their state. Wyoming is a very, very
Conservative state.
conservative state.
Honestly, I used to very much be that way. Like all through high school. I mean, I went to high school in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I knew tons of people that was like their personality. When you're a high schooler and you smoke weed, yeah, man, I love Cheech and Chong, and like I love the Munchies, and like reggae is cool. And it's like, okay, but like that's very one-dimensional of you.
Yeah.
So I stigmatized marijuana for myself for a very long time.
Smoking it before I even knew what it was.
Yeah.
Like,
And a lot of people do fall into that category where you're like
Yeah.
12, 13, and because it's there, you do it.
because you're around people who you think are your fucking friends, then you just do it. And
So I think that goes back to education, and not education being shoved down your throat like DARE, like this is your brain on drugs, because that shit doesn't do anything. But like when I legitimately, when I went through DARE, we had an actual cop show up and he was like, this is what all of these drugs do to you, because I've seen it firsthand. And I'm sorry if my mic is making crazy noises, I keep hitting it. But like, this is what I've seen it do firsthand. This is how I've seen it destroy families. This is what I've seen happen. And he didn't bullshit us. He was like, marijuana is honestly not that bad. It makes you like just want to chill out. And he was open and honest, and it was all firsthand. And I took a lot from that. But a lot of people don't get that experience. They get the we watched earlier.
because I've even heard stuff like that. But then there's always but it's the gate. You do that, you're gonna go to that, and that's just not true at all. Like
Yeah, I mean, like I've
me personally, I was on nicotine before I was on anything.
Of course.
Smoking cigarettes at fucking age 9, I
Right.
think.
Crazy.
Honestly, I would
Absolutely
say that
phenomenal.
nicotine at that young of an age is more of a gateway. But as an adult, if they're marijuana is not a gateway for an adult. The only reason marijuana is a gateway for anyone is influence.
But it's influence in its circumstance.
Yeah.
Because if you are in a circumstance in life to where you can cope with stuff that's thrown at you,
Yeah.
then you don't feel the need necessarily to elevate what you're doing to escape. You don't feel the need to go from like marijuana, which has been proven to not be addictive, and no one has ever overdosed on marijuana ever in the history of recorded humanity. It's not ever happened, because you're going to smoke so much that you fall the fuck asleep long before you overdose, period. Your body just won't let you do it.
That's one thing that I remember from there. The only possible way you can overdose is if you smoke. It was crazy amount. It was like your body weight in the span of.
There's
just no way. Yeah.
There are people that have tried
Yeah.
to overdose on marijuana, and you can't do it.
Yeah.
You literally can't.
You just get so fucked up to the point where you just fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're not a detriment to yourself or anybody else because you're passed the
just
fuck
sleeping.
out.
Yeah.
So like, there was a statistic that I saw a very long time ago because I was living in Colorado when they legalized marijuana, and I saw that in Denver proper, like Denver City, hit and runs were up something like 300%. I could not find that statistic, which is why I did not quote it throughout the main episode. But think about it. Weed's legal. You could buy it almost at any corner down there. It's like there are a lot of dispensaries. For the first time, you get in your car, you smoke a joint, get pretty baked, forget that stop signs exist, or you're going about 12 miles an hour, and if like they're all low speed hit and run. So it was people crossing the street with their bikes, and the person that was pulling up to the stop sign was like, bro, and they tapped the bike and they counted that as a hit and run.
Well, fucking tired, dude. I'm a bad driver.
Right.
So it's not just like, yeah, under the influence, but there's also so many scenarios that like that shit fucking like whenever you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
That's worse than being high or drunk.
Yep. Mythbusters did it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
But genuinely, just like based off of my personal like experiences, being tired is worse than being under the influence.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, sometimes being tired is unavoidable.
I put my car in a ditch because I just didn't. Instead of pulling over and getting out and doing like jumping jacks, I was just like,
yeah, nodding off. Back when I used to drive for Loomis, I legitimately had a dependency on like Monsters and Red Bulls and that shit that is terrible for you and will put you in an early grave because I had such a fucked up schedule. For the DOT, you're supposed to have 10 hours between your shift end and your shift begin. And there were times when I'd have 4.5 hours and I had an hour commute. So what do? You quasi nap in your fucking car and then get back to goddamn work. And I mean, I was driving, multi-1,000-pound vehicles down the road. It was bad. And you're right. Sleep deprivation can be just as bad, if not worse, than any of the narcotics out there. And that's something that occurs completely naturally. All you have to do is just like not go to sleep.
Or and sleep deprivation and exhaustion doesn't just come from lack of sleep.
Right. Well, sleep deprivation does because that's literally what it's called. But exhaustion can come from anything. I mean,
and like just your mental capacity could be overflowed. But like there's so much shit that like.
I mean, you can be like iron deficient, and that can exhaust you quicker. Like exactly what I was about to say.
You could have just eaten a lot on Thanksgiving Day and then been like, oh,
and the itis sets in, and then you're just fucked.
Yeah, like.
But so okay, what I think needs to happen. Fortunately, I wrote it down because I'm way more eloquent in my writing than I am my actual word talking. Eloquent.
I don't think
eloquent.
Eloquent.
Elegant is also a word, but that's not what I'm going for here. Eloquent. Google it. Go ahead.
I'm good.
All right. So for a country originally settled to escape religious persecution, then later rebelling to invoke personal freedoms, I personally think that people should be able to do what they like, as long as it doesn't negatively impact others. If you want to take an ungodly amount of mushrooms before going to a Tool concert, hey, that's fucking great. So long as nobody gets nobody gets hurt or interfered with or anything, like you're fine. Great. If you're responsible, I'm for it. But if you snort a few lines of coke and smash your car into a minivan, I definitely think there should be implications. But that's harder to enforce because everything's a case-by-case basis, and ultimately make money from, rather than all these drugs are forbidden. That's my Nazi voice. I definitely feel that minimum sentencing shouldn't be a thing, which is something I didn't even touch on.
There should be a cap on, like per pound.
Well, there is. Let me pull up that's not it. Oh, I saved a chart for exactly this. Where
guys, we're gonna try to end this in
we are gonna try to
3
end
minutes.
It's so for your first offense with let's say 1 gram of heroin, right? There's a minimum sentencing. I believe it's 5 years because I don't have that specific chart saved. If it's your second offense with that amount, it's like 15 years. to life. Like all of these, the maximum is life for any amount of drug conviction, period, which I think is fucking insane. When it comes to like different amounts though, like if you get caught with a kilogram of heroin, minimum is 25 years to life. So it's all dependent, but there's literally a chart that any judge in the US can go, okay, all right, yep, cool, this is what it's supposed to be. And for every like that doesn't work because that's a one size fits all solution to a everyone is a different problem. I think what we need to do, get back to my notes here. Sorry, because again, I did write it down and I felt like I did a very good job of it. It gets into a debate about systematic racism, and yes, the stats do appear to skew a bit, but that's endemic of a problem that we can't fix. If we just took the money if we took the money that the government pumps into fighting a war that they will never win, and we put that into rehabilitation and destigmatizing drug use, I think we would start to get somewhere. If we treated it exactly like alcoholism, but even alcoholism is still stigmatized, like it's a disease. If we started treating it and drug use like diseases, oh, you've got cancer, fuck you, is basically how we view drug addicts. Oh yeah.
Now everyone is mental health. Health is top priority. And
right.
This is also like it's a health issue. It is a mental health.
Well,
they are beating themselves up, and addiction itself is not a fun game.
No, it's not pretty. Like you're gonna lose friends, you're gonna lose family. People are gonna just stop dealing with you because you can't get it under control. But that's not like the fault of the person that is
picture someone forcing you or telling you that you have to put your phone down and you can't touch your phone for a week. And picture the first few days of how that would be, how angsty you would be, and like just everything like that.
Well, yeah, most people are addicted to their phones, but think about that times about 1 million, because it is it's a chemical dependency. Your brain needs that shit,
or else
whatever it is.
To what they feel is killing themselves. They feel like their body is trying to kill them.
It depends on what you're coming off of. Like every drug is a little different.
But even nicotine withdrawals are a thing. You get migraines, like your mood swings.
Like every time I try to quit smoking, I just like, I don't feel right. I get super like hungry. I just want to eat garbage food. Like I just like want to chew my own fucking cheeks off. I just don't feel right. And that is an addiction. I mean, this is an addiction. That's an addiction. But like, this isn't going to ruin our lives, whereas like heroin or crack or LSD could. Not so much LSD. Possibly. But I think if we stop, we need to change our tactics in fighting this war on drugs. Instead of throwing the book at every drug user out there, because all you're doing is you're putting them in prison. They're getting out into the exact same situation they were in before that caused them to do these fucking drugs. What are they going to do? They're going to keep doing the goddamn drugs. So you're creating an endless cycle of people that are in a system that only wants to use, abuse, chew them up, and spit them out. And it's not fair. It's not fair to their family. It's not fair to their friends. It's not fair to them. So we need to fix the problem at its source. Get the people the help that they need. But we're also a country that can't take care of their own veterans. So like, that's a whole nother day. All right. Well, you're exhausted, obviously.
And I can only imagine that you guys are watching this lying in bed. And if you made it to the end, comment like Grapefruit.
Sure.
Something weird.
Yeah,
If
just
people are watching.
just random fruits. The most random fruit gets, I don't know, a shout out on the next episode because that's what we can afford to give you. As always, like, subscribe, share us. Do you like these long form episodes? Because it did legitimately take me about 2 weeks to throw all these notes together.
Just a super long.
A super long one. If people like it, if not,
we can shut them short.
I can also choose topics that aren't nearly as in depth as this one was, and I could have gone deeper, but I kind of figured nobody wanted to sit here for 6 hours.
I'm pretty sure I just said shut them short.
Yeah, I don't know what you said actually. I kind of just glazed over it.
Shut them short.
Oh, yeah, shut them short. Exactly. Send us an email, badgerholepodcast@gmail.com. We're on TikTok now, tiktok.com/@badgerholepodcast. Good guess. Obviously YouTube, Badgerhole Podcast, same for Spotify. Yeah, let us know your thoughts on all of this because we're just two guys talking. I mean, and one is falling asleep. So that's it for now. That's it. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.